So I always thought that, whenever you record a movie or an animated movie, you basically write out the storyline, record a movie, and then maybe edit it a little bit and release it, and it would be a great movie. But when I read about how Pixar actually, created some of their best movies, like Monsters Inc. or Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, movies like that, I was surprised to find out that that's actually not the case. Instead, what Pixar does is they write a storyline, and they have great writers, great lead writers writing out the storylines for them. So they write this out, they start animating the movie, and then what they do is they play it in front of test audiences to see the reactions. And then, whenever the reactions are not the way that they wanted to or they expected them to be, they tweak the story, they tweak the storyline, they change the movie. And it becomes this iterative process where they, shoot a few scenes, they test, the movie in front of the audience, and then make the tweaks to make the movie better. And that's apparently how they've created some of the best movies like Monsters Inc. or Toy Story, and so on and so on. And then what happens throughout that process is they not only make the changes to small scenes, they don't just make small edits, but they might even change the whole story. Like they might add another character, later on in the process. They might take the focus from one character and move it to the other character, and so on and so on. And, they create these major, changes to the story, which then helps them create great movies. And, when I read about this phenomenon, like the people at Pixar actually said that, their movies originally pretty much sucked. Like the movies that they originally shot, they were horrible. And what made them great is this constant refinement process and creating this great product that people then loved watching. Now, what's even more interesting is, that the Pixar, they shot movies like Monsters Inc. and Toy Story with this approach. But then they were like, well, this is great, but this is costing us a lot of money. It's this iterative approach. It involves a lot of shooting. It involves a lot of test audiences and so on and so on. And they said, like, for Finding Nemo, they would take a different approach. So with Finding Nemo, they said, like, we're going to, cut down these iterations. We're going to really make sure that the storyline is perfect in the beginning. And then we don't have to do all of these tests, iterations, spend more money on this, have these test audiences in so often. It was a great idea of like how they can make this a lot more cost effective for them to produce. But as they did that, what was surprising was they used that approach, they played it in front of test audiences, and they realized that the movie was super confusing because there were these two storylines that kind of like interconnected each other. Like there was a story about this overprotective dad from Nemo. Then there was a story of Nemo getting lost. There were a lot of flashbacks, coming back to what his dad was doing at the time. And it proved out to be a really confusing story to most of the viewers. So because these flashbacks constantly confused viewers, they had to go back to the drawing board and, still go through all the iterations that they went through for the previous movies. And in the end, they created this incredible movie. Now, how does this apply to online business? I think that a lot of times in online business, we try to make things too perfect. We try to spend like, I don't know, I've seen, people spend 6 months developing a $50 online course to make sure the videos are perfect, to make sure everything is great, to make sure everything is amazing. And I've seen people sell that course and people would hate it or nobody would even buy it. And I'm probably guilty of the exact same thing in the past when I spent way too much time, developing something like, for example, with, my Insiders Club program, which was a very failed product launch for me where I expected like 40 sales and I got 4 sales. With that part, like I made these grand plans, I built out this huge product launch sequence, but I didn't get enough feedback on my program to actually iterate for it and find the right positioning. So it became a big flop. And I spent like, more than a month developing a program that I had very little results from, in the end. So the big lesson for us here is that rather than spending like, months and months and months developing a program before showing it to anyone, whether it's a coaching program, whether it's an online course, whatever it is, like even, if you're writing really epic content like an ultimate guide, if you're working on something huge, it's much better to get your audience in on it, to get your readers in on the process, and get feedback from them to help you refine that to make it really great rather than trying to make it great in the vacuum. So if you're planning on creating your first or next online course, rather than making these great plans and like recording these videos in advance, think about how can you test this on a small scale. Can you do a beta test where you just, bring 10 people into the program, you coach them for 4 weeks through the topics, and there's no fancy videos, there's no fancy PowerPoint slides. You just teach them the content, see how they like it, see the results they get, and get their feedback on how you can improve the program. And that's how I try to approach my program development. I would rather test an idea fast. I would launch it. I'll be like, hey guys, I'm doing this beta test for this program. Is anyone interested? If yes, let's do it. Let's do it for the next 4 weeks. I'll guide you through it step by step. But I don't go into this big production of like developing the program and then doing a huge product launch to sell it, because that might, make it a flop. So I always try to think about how can I test my ideas on a small scale, which is very similar to what Pixar is doing. Like, yes, maybe they do take the time to flesh out the idea of a storyline in the beginning, but then they constantly test it through these iterations, through these test audiences, through seeing their reactions, and that's how you can really build great products rather than planning them out and just looking at your research and things like that. Because you can look at the research, you can plan things out for 6 months, for 12 months, and you're still going to create a program that's not great, because you will actually get the best feedback from people that actually go through the program rather than, just trying to create something that serves customers' needs. The same thing with developing, physical products or, with startups. Usually, like, even if you look at Facebook, like Facebook is very different now than it was like, 5-10 years ago, whenever it started. Like back then, it was just this small thing, you could just add friends within your, alumni network or something like that, or within your university. And then it slowly grew, it slowly expanded. There's all these features. Like in the beginning, I remember it had this weird games where you could like own your friends and sell them to other friends. It was like this weird stuff. Then, advertising became popular. Then you had like this Facebook walls and like Facebook groups and like all of these different things kind of like evolved over time. And, people were constantly getting feedback from people. And then, you remember like you once could just like things, and now we have all these different emotions. You could do Facebook Live video and so on and so on. And I'm sure, the Facebook process, it's like to make Facebook, to get it to where it is today, and have this such huge customer base, it wasn't sitting down and developing this grand thing. It was evolving it over time. Same thing with like Apple computers or any type of computers. It's like, Apple computers, the first iPhone is very different than the last iPhone. Same thing with like a MacBook Pro or like a Mac, like the first Macs were like those big plastic Macs. Now we have these like huge screens that are like super thin, and so on and so on. So in developing our online business, I think there is a huge mistake that people make, which is they spend way too much time trying to think of the perfect idea, plan the perfect idea, rather than, taking an idea, testing it, and then evolving it along the way to really make it great. And that's what you can learn from Pixar about how you can develop better online courses and better online programs. Hope this, video is useful for you. And if it is useful, then do share it with someone who you think might benefit from watching this video. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.